Hello, everybody. Um, I am Expert Jonathan Soo Hoo, and today I am going to talk to you about a variation of the Sicilian defense that I have found to be one of my favorite lines for a very long time. This variation is the Sicilian Najdorf. It begins with e4, c5, knight f3, g6, g4, c takes d, knight takes d, knight f6, knight c3, and now the move a6. For me, the Najdorf has been a staple in my opening repertoire for since I was very low rated. My group of fan of Bobby Fischer, and it's really just stuck with me ever since. It's a very aggressive system. If white wants to play for a win, he can go ahead and do that. If black wants to play for a win, rather, he can go ahead and do that. For the longest time, I was a very sharp player, but now I may not be as sharp a player, but at the same time, I also have a lot of experience in this variation, so it's really it's hard for me to stop playing it. So the Najdorf is it is an aggressive system. It's not for those who don't like calculating. What more can I say about it? So the purpose of this video isn't to provide you with an opening repertoire that you can use no matter what your opponent plays against e4. The purpose of this video, I think, is more to provide a general overview of the opening, give you a good idea of like the ideas behind in the positions that arise, and for me, I'm gonna go over lines from both perspectives, white and black. So hopefully it's useful for each color. I used to play e4 as white. So let's get started. Let's talk about the possible moves for white to play. In this position, white has this move g3, bishop e2, bishop e3, bishop g5, bishop c4. f4 is a move. Let's see. Occasionally you'll see queen f3. It's a very strange system. I personally don't think it's very good. But well, I mean, maybe what I'll do is, because Najdorf is a very long opening to talk about, so maybe what I'll do is I'll make this a series and I'll continue talking about the Najdorf in future lectures as well. Okay, so for the longest time, bishop g5 was the main move, and then this was in the 60s, and then came Bobby Fischer with his bishop c4. Bishop e2, I should mention, bishop e2 has always been a relatively common line against the Najdorf, but at the same time, it never really gained that popularity level that bishop g5 gained in the 60s. Okay, and bishop then in the 80s, or 70s and then 80s, Anatoly Karpov popularized bishop e2, and bishop e2 really took steam. And then also in, I believe it was the 80s, f4 also became popular as a very aggressive system. I believe this was recommended in a book by John Nunn and Gallagher, and I can't remember the author at the moment, but it was recommended, and it's a very aggressive system. And if Black doesn't know how to play against it properly, he could seriously find himself in a whole lot of trouble very quickly. That said, if Black does know how to play against it, I believe that f4 is nothing. Honestly, it's an aggressive system, but at the same time, Black equalizes very easily and has very good chances to win the game himself. Okay. Today let's look at bishop g5. Now, I haven't played that often in the recent years, and I don't study that much theory in recent years. I'm a student, so I don't have as much time to keep up with all the theory. But bishop g5, from my limited looking at games, it's probably the most testing line for white. Most testing line white can try in this position. Now that said, I don't believe it leads to much. After bishop g5, honestly, I've never played this line, never really studied it as white, because I always, when I was an aggressive player, I always played bishop c4, and then later I played bishop e3, and now if I play e4, I'll play bishop e2. I'm giving you a hint into my repertoire, but so I like bishop e2 personally. It's my favorite line, but I honestly don't think it leads to much if Black knows what to do. Bishop g5 in this position, if I'm not mistaken, e6 is still the main move. And after f4, Black has two options: queen b6, which leads to the poison pawn variation, and queen c7. Well, queen c7, sorry, and knight b to d7. And I believe bishop e7 is a move. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know bishop e7 or knight b d7. I know knight b d7 is sort of the main line. So sorry about that, but I don't want to give you bad information. It's probably better if you did your own research on it. I mean, I could do the research, but I just feel like when you do your own research, it helps you better more than it, because knight b d7 it's a line, but I never liked it personally as Black. So that's why I never really played it. I take that back, actually. There is one system which for a long time I did like in this variation. After queen f3, it's over. Knight b7, queen c7, bishop e7. Oops. Castles, bishop b7, g4. For the longest time I liked this system. h6, bishop h4. I mean, if takes, that's a whole... Oops. If takes, just take back. With the bishop or knight, they're both fine. And I think Black's doing quite alright. With bishop h4, the idea is g5 takes, knight e5. It doesn't matter where the queen moves, then you take on g4. Or, let's see. And Oops. Probably queen g3 is better. Because after takes on g4, then you can take. Whoops. Yeah, rook takes looks fine to me. I don't see anything wrong with it. After rook takes, probably bishop takes is score. Pretty much forced, yeah. And I don't know. I mean, it's a preference thing. But this might be better. And after takes, rook takes, queen moves, say g5. Well, here rook. So if queen h4, then you can offer a draw. Oops. And that's a certainly a fine result as black. Or if you want to play for a win, yeah, I mean, this. I think black. I mean, if you want to play for a win, you might be able to play this, knight e3, and seizing the bishop pair, or the bishop against knight. But honestly, I think the fact that black can white is playing queen h4 here is a testament to that this is not a very good system for white. If queen d2, if queen f4, queen f4, we have this move, rook f6, and knight f2 comes next. So he has to go back again. Let me just return. Okay, so queen d2 is pretty much forced, and you can probably just play bishop d7 and castle along, and you're doing just fine. So sometimes white doesn't have to play g4. Sometimes white plays bishop d3, but again, it doesn't really change our plan. Bishop h4, g5 takes, knight e5, g3 takes. Actually, queen g3, I think runs in this line runs into this, right? And then queen c5 looks quite powerful indeed, because now we are looking at this pawn. Knight g4 is on the horizon, and this knight is hanging. Yeah, black's certainly equalized here. And this is not. I like this system honestly as black. And I think this would transpose into the system after bishop b7. But queen c7 is. Oh, there's another Poyezki variation. Poyezki variation begins with b5. It's very sharp. For a long time, I played this. I can't recommend it. I think I lost most of the games I played in it. The line goes like this. So queen c7, and I know taking on f6 is a variation after knight e4 takes. And bishop here, e2. And the idea is that white's gonna get a lot of tempi off this queen, this vulnerable queen. For example, I don't know why ChessBase is recommending queen takes g2, because bishop f3 looks quite winning. Huh. Well, you take a8 and okay, so here, so probably takes here first. No, because then bishop takes and then queen takes h4 and takes d4. Just to show you. The idea is that here, I think you can play here. Take a little takes here. So so far take here. But even here, I believe knight e2 looks quite strong indeed. The idea is like, for example, white is even threatening to play queen d8 here, and what can black do? I can't recommend. I honestly cannot recommend this system for 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 black. It's just there's way too much risk involved. And there's some far better systems. There's another line. I think h6 was another move. I believe. After there, g5. Knight e7. I'm really forgetting the variation. I'm blanking right now. But here I'll tell you the game. It was Fischer against Fischer against Geller, I believe, or it might have been. No, it wasn't Timon. Though he came later. Maybe it was Geller. Or Gligorek. It might have been Gligorek. Fischer against Gligorek. From I believe it was Krakow. Excuse me if I pronounced that incorrectly. In 1962. But anyways, my knowledge is focused on Queen c7 and Queen b6. So, Queen c7, the idea is really simple. Sure, you can transfer back into the main lines with knight b d7, but the idea is b5 at once. The idea is like castles, b4, knight moves, bishop b7. Of course, you have to always examine this. Knight d5, I believe we just take. There was a long variation. I don't remember exactly, but we threw in. There was some sort of b3 at one point, and then the white queen has to come over and take it, and then queen has to come over and take it, and then the black is doing just fine. I don't remember the line exactly. But this is the idea. Or you can also play bishop b7. And the idea is also quick b4. So, of course, Queen c7 also has its drawbacks. Because while in the other variations the knight is on d7 and is able to defend this knight, well, it also, in this variation, is not on d7, so white often tries to take it at once. And after g takes bishop e2, the idea is really simple. Bishop h5. And the idea is that now, if I ever try to castle, well, first of all, this pin So this pawn is effectively undefended by this pawn, right? So if I ever try to play knight d7 at some point, knight comes in and takes on e6, and that is pretty much catastrophic. Another idea is that if this bishop ever tries to come to this long diagonal, again, that's the knight takes on e6, and that's pretty much catastrophic. Another idea is that, say I get my pieces developed, bishop d7, knight c6. If I ever try to castle, when the bishop is on h5, takes f7, and that's also unpleasant, to say the least. Also, white has another idea. With the bishop on h5, we can play f5, I play e5, he drops the knight into e6, and that's quite unpleasant as well. As you can probably imagine. Additionally, if the pawn's on e5, what's going on? If the pawn's on e5, the d5 square becomes very weak. So could you just imagine a knight on e6 and d5 in black's camp? It's not very pleasant. So that's one of the main drawbacks. I believe black for black on his part, he has to play some sort of h5 at some point, preventing this bishop from coming, which makes a whole lot of sense. And yeah, so I told you about my another one of my specialties is queen b6, and honestly, that'll take a long time for me to do. So I'm gonna leave you here, and for the next time we'll talk about the poison pawn variation and queen b6. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thanks for watching. Again, this is Expert Jonathan Soo Hoo. Hope you enjoyed.